replied Mr Swiveller, eating his dinner with great gravity. "None like her. She's the Sphinx of private life, is Sally B."
"You're out of spirits," said Quilp, drawing up a chair. "What's the matter?"
"The law don't agree with me," returned Dick. "It isn't moist enough, and there's too much confinement. I've been thinking of running away."
"Bah!" said the dwarf. "Where would you run to, Dick?"
"I don't know," returned Mr Swiveller. "Towards Highgate, I suppose. Perhaps the bells might strike up 'Turn again, Swiveller, Lord Mayor of London.' Whittington's name was Dick. I wish cats was scarcer." Quilp looked at his companion with his eyes screwed up into a comical expression of curiosity, and patiently awaited his further explanation. Upon which, however, Mr Swiveller appeared in no hurry to enter, as he ate a very long dinner in profound silence, finally pushed away his plate, threw himself back into his chair, folded his arms, and stared ruefully at the fire, in which some ends of cigars were smoking on their own account, and sending up a fragrant odour. "Perhaps you'd like a bit of cake?" said Dick, at last turning to the dwarf. "You're quite welcome to it. You ought to be, for it's of your making."
"What do you mean?"
said Quilp. Mr Swiveller replied by taking from his pocket a small and very greasy parcel, slowly unfolding it, and displaying a little slab of plum cake, extremely indigestible in appearance, and bordered with a paste of white sugar 1.5 inches deep. "What should you say this was?" demanded Mr Swiveller.
"It looks like bride cake," replied the dwarf, grinning.
"And whose should you say it was?" inquired Mr Swiveller, rubbing the pastry against his nose with a dreadful calmness. "Whose?"
"Not."
"Yes," said Dick, "the same. You needn't mention her name. There's no such name now. Her name is Cheggs now, Sophy Cheggs. Yet loved I as man never loved that hadn't wooden legs, and my heart is breaking for the love of Sophy Cheggs." With this extemporary adaptation of a popular ballad to the distressing circumstances of his own case, Mr Swiveller folded up the parcel again, beat it very flat between the palms of his hands, thrust it into his breast, buttoned his coat over it, and folded his arms upon the whole. "Now, I hope you're satisfied, sir," said Dick, "and I hope Fred's satisfied. You went partners in the mischief, and I hope you like it. This is the triumph I was to have, is it? It's like the old country dance of that name, where there are two gentlemen to one lady, and one has her, and the other hasn't, but comes limping up behind to make out the figure. But it's destiny, and mine's a crusher." Disguising his secret joy in Mr Swiveller's defeat, Daniel Quilp adopted the surest means of soothing him by ringing the bell and ordering in a supply of rosy wine, that is to say, of its usual representative, which he put about with great alacrity, calling upon Mr Swiveller to pledge him in various toasts derisive of Cheggs, and eulogistic of the happiness of single men. Such was their impression on Mr Swiveller, coupled with the reflection that no man could oppose his destiny, that in a very short space of time his spirits rose surprisingly, and he was enabled to give the dwarf an account of the receipt of the cake, which, it appeared, had been brought to Bevis Marks by the two surviving Miss Wackleses in person, and delivered at the office door with much giggling and joyfulness.
"Ha!" said Quilp. "It will be our turn to giggle soon. And that reminds me. You spoke of young Trent. Where is he?"
Mr Swiveller explained that his respectable friend had recently accepted a responsible situation in a locomotive gaming house, and was at that time absent on a professional tour among the adventurous spirits of Great Britain.
"That's unfortunate," said the dwarf, "for I came, in fact, to ask you about him. A thought has occurred to me, Dick. Your friend over the way—"
"Which friend?"
"In the first floor."
"Yes?"
"Your friend in the first floor, Dick, may know him."
"No, he don't," said Mr Swiveller, shaking his head.
"Don't?" "No, because he has never seen him," rejoined Quilp. "But if we were to bring them together, Who knows, Dick, but Fred, properly introduced, would serve his turn almost as well as little Nell or her grandfather. Who knows but it might make the young fellow's fortune, and, through him, yours, eh?'
'Why, the fact is, you see,' said Mr Swiveller, 'that they have been brought together.'
'Have been?'
cried the dwarf, looking suspiciously at his companion.
'Through whose means?'
'Through mine,' said Dick, slightly confused. 'Didn't I mention it to you the last time you called over yonder?'
'You know you didn't,'
returned the dwarf. 'I believe you're right,' said Dick. 'No, I didn't, I recollect. Oh yes, I brought 'em together that very day. It was Fred's suggestion.'
'And what came of it?'
'Why, instead of my friend's bursting into tears when he knew who Fred was, embracing him kindly and telling him that he was his grandfather, or his grandmother in disguise, which we fully expected, he flew into a tremendous passion, called him all manner of names, said it was in a great measure his fault that little Nell and the old gentleman had ever been brought to poverty, didn't hint at our taking anything to drink, and in short, rather turned us out of the room than otherwise.
'That's strange,' said the dwarf, musing.
'So we remarked to each other at the time,' returned Dick coolly, 'but quite true.' Quilp was plainly staggered by this intelligence, over which he brooded for some time in moody silence, often raising his eyes to Mr Swiveller's face and sharply scanning its expression. As he could read in it, however, no additional information or anything to lead him to believe he had spoken falsely, and as Mr Swiveller, left to his own meditations, sighed deeply and was evidently growing maudlin on the subject of Mrs Cheggs, the dwarf soon broke up the conference and took his departure, leaving the bereaved one to his melancholy ruminations.
'Have been brought together, eh?' said the dwarf, as he walked the streets alone. 'My friend has stolen a march upon me. It led him to nothing, and therefore is no great matter, save in the intention. I'm glad he has lost his mistress. The blockhead mustn't leave the law at present. I'm sure of him where he is, whenever I want him for my own purpose, and besides, he's a good unconscious spy on brass, and tells in his cups all that he sees and hears. You're useful to me, Dick, and cost nothing but a little treating now and then. I am not sure that it may not be worth while, before long, to take credit with the stranger, Dick, by discovering your designs upon the child. But for the present, we'll remain the best friends in the world, with your good leave.' Pursuing these thoughts, and gasping as he went along after his own peculiar fashion, Mr Quilp once more crossed the Thames and shut himself up in his bachelor's hall, which, by reason of its newly erected chimney depositing the smoke inside the room and carrying none of it off, was not quite so agreeable as more fastidious people might have desired. Such inconveniences, however, instead of disgusting the dwarf with his new abode, rather suited his humour, so after dining luxuriously from the public house, he lighted his pipe and smoked against the chimney until nothing of him was visible through the mist but a pair of red and highly inflamed eyes, with sometimes a dim vision of his head and face, as in a violent fit of coughing he slightly stirred the smoke, and scattered the heavy wreaths by which they were obscured. In the midst of this atmosphere, which must infallibly have smothered any other man, Mr Quilp passed the evening with great cheerfulness, solacing himself at all time with the pipe and the case bottle, and occasionally entertaining himself with a melodious howl, intended for a song, but bearing not the faintest resemblance to any scrap of any piece of music, vocal or instrumental, ever invented by man. Thus he amused himself until nearly midnight, when he turned into his hammock with the utmost satisfaction. The first sound that met his ears in the morning, as he half opened his eyes, and finding himself so unusually near the ceiling, entertained a drowsy idea that he must have been transformed into a fly or bluebottle in the course of the night, was that of a stifled sobbing and weeping in the room. Peeping cautiously over the side of his hammock, he descried Mrs Quilp, to whom, after contemplating her for some time in silence, he communicated a